Welcome to the Spirit of a Badass, where we celebrate stories of courage, hope, and resiliency. I'm your host, Alecia Jacobson. Busy moms, you probably struggle in some way with routines. Maybe you've started and stopped. Maybe you're not sure what you need to do, but we are going to kind of go into this today. These are the 6 reasons why I probably have excelled at routines, because I have to. I have needed to do that by default. We're going to cover routines, what they are and why they work, why yours are probably not working for you. This is a general observation that I have seen working with women, and then what you can go out and start doing today to hopefully get them to start working for you. Why me? My kids call me Big Mama. We found this picture on vacation, and over the last 13 years, I've worked with hundreds of women, either in the gym, in my coaching programs, developing routines for them, figuring out why they didn't work, and then making them stick, essentially, making the routine sticky. And then in my personal life, running a business and having a blended family. My husband works evenings, so I've had to get really good at creating routines. So I do it for work and I do it at home. All right. Why routines? And if you don't have a notebook or something, this would be a good time to grab a notebook that you can write some things down. I do have some questions that we'll be going over that would be helpful if you could write some things down that were personal to you. So one of the things that people come to me, generally most of the people I work with, they want to create routines. They have this feeling because they are usually feeling a lack of control. There is chaos, and they want to sort of rein the crazy in that they're feeling, sort of like everything is happening outside them and there's not really any control to it. They want structure. That is something that when you're looking at a routine, they want to feel, like I said, the control to it and having that predictability within the routine. When you have a routine, you know what's coming and you can plan for that. So there's this sort of like, which you get kind of in the beginning of it. And then once it comes to be just natural, you probably don't even realize it anymore. In a routine, you get accountability. People know what one of the things that I have, my morning routine is really nailed down. And one of the things with the accountability is my daughter. I make her breakfast every single morning. So I am accountable to her expectation that she will be fed. This is kind of an interesting one because when I was in the gym and I was working early mornings, I was never able to make breakfast for any of my kids. So this is actually a really important one for me. And I know that in my morning routine, if I am not making breakfast at 6:40, she's not going to have it at 6:50. So I'm accountable to her. This also looks like maybe a gym buddy or a friend or a coach or whatever that might look like. But having a routine that has some built-in accountability so that you can be supported in it. It saves time because what happens is you have it where it's set up. You don't really have to think about it. I don't have to think in the morning, what is it that I'm going to do? Because I have a really good routine that it's not something that I even need to think about. And if you can kind of reflect on the spaces in your life where there is not that predictability, you don't have the routine. I know one of the things that I'm working on and kind of making a routine is we do travel sports. And on the weekends when we're gone, I don't have a good routine yet as far as food and packing and having all these things. So I end up either wasting time, like the last time where I'm stopping at Target on the way out of town, or I'm wasting money because I'm spending a lot of money when I'm there. So that's currently something in my life that I'm working on, is making a good kind of leading up to the weekend routine so I can plan to have all of the things for that weekend. And this is a new thing. So it's something that and probably by the time I figure it out, the traveling is going to be over with, but it's something I'll have to do again next year. So you might find these times where something is coming up and you have to create a new routine, but they do definitely save time and money depending on what kind of routine it is. And then getting into the more health type things. When you're looking at routines, a lot of times I hear people wanting a morning routine an evening routine that comes with, making dinners or meal prep, things like that, an exercise routine, things where it is directly correlated to their health. So by creating these routines, you can have better health when you stick to them. Better sleep. We'll talk about this one later. This is actually a big factor in why routines work and don't work. But when you can get a good evening routine, that will help with your sleep, which then translates to your morning routine, which will help with that. Better relationships. When things are in chaos and you don't have a routine, generally there could be some bickering if you have a spouse or a partner or kids that, you want to help out or you need their buy-in for it. So if you can create a good routine that you have the buy-in with other people, and sometimes you don't, and we work with that, and we can find ways that if you don't have the people in your world that buy into this idea of we need to create this routine, we can work with that also. But it does create the next one, less stress by having routines that work. And then that lends itself to better relationships. Then the less overwhelm. When you have a plan, when you know what's happening, you don't feel overwhelmed. You kind of take everything out of your head and you put it on paper, you know what's happening. For my routines, generally I have, even though I know what they are, I still write them out every morning just in case something comes up, but it takes the kind of thinking and the overwhelm that happens in my brain. And when I see it on paper and then I like to check off the things, it just creates more calm and peace in my world. So those are the reasons why. You might have other reasons why, and we're going to talk about that also. So why haven't your routines worked? Reason number one, you've done too much too soon. So often what I see is that people are like, I am all excited about this. I'm gung-ho. I'm going to do this. And they go and get all the things and they maybe last 2 to 3 days and then they implode. And it's because they didn't break it down. They went too hard, too fast, and then it just didn't work. They didn't have the foundation built in so that they could create a routine that would really work for them. If you've heard me talk about the goal setting analogy of the staircase, and when you're going up a set of stairs, you can't just jump from the bottom to the top stair. You can't do it all at once. You have to take one step at a time. And when we're creating routines, if you take a morning routine, for example, you want to get up at 6 a.m., you want to get your workout in, you want to stretch, have a breakfast, you want to have an hour before your kids get up to be able to sort of like, get ready for the day, or maybe before you go to work. And you're trying to like, okay, I'm going to do these 8 things the next morning, and the alarm goes off and it's like, okay, that's too much. So how can you break that down so that you're not doing everything all at once, because that just creates that overwhelm. So if they haven't worked, that's one of the main reasons I see is it's too much too soon. Reason number 2, you don't believe you actually can stick to it. This comes down to, in my email today, if you're on my email list, oh, there's a dog. You will hear I've got this bug in me that I want to paint because I saw a TikTok and now I want to paint my house like these bold colors. Never once have I followed through on a home improvement project. Zero times that I've ever followed through. And I decided I'm going to paint my bathroom. I removed everything from the space and I'm doing it in my bathroom because if I don't follow through, which I know I won't, it's not going to be visible to everyone. However, I still have this pull to go and paint my bathroom. Now, this has nothing to do with routines, but it has everything to do with the fact that me as a person is not a person who follows through on home improvement projects. I have a track record of 0, and I've started a lot of things. So I'm going into it believing I'm probably not going to make it happen. Now, if I actually was like, you know what, this time is going to be different, I would still probably like rethink like, girl, it is not going to be different. It's actually not going to be different, but I can get reinforcement. I can do things differently. So me going into this with the belief of, you have a track record of 0, this is not going to happen. Now it's paint. So it's not that big of a deal, right? It's not like a health thing that really has no impact on the rest of my house. But I'm telling you this because you have to work with one, who you are at your actual core, and then work on the belief that is underneath that. So if you don't believe in yourself to actually do the things that matter, paint doesn't really matter. So whether or not I believe in myself on that, doesn't matter. But if I don't believe that I can eat healthy, if I don't believe that I can come up with an exercise routine, if I don't believe that I can get enough sleep at night so that I feel like an actual human the next day, that's not going to happen. So getting down to kind of working with who you actually are at your core, and then also working on the belief and the language that you're using to yourself. Like I have somebody that I work with right now that is constantly like, well, I'm just not that person, or I just can't, or, I've always done this, kind of like I said with the paint. And you have to, like, if I really was like, I need to really, like, this home improvement stuff is really important to me, I would have to work on my beliefs, work on the language that I'm using. Because if I just keep telling myself that I'm not a person who, I'm never going to be a person who, fill in the blank. So working on that language. Reason number 3. This is a big old reason number 3. You haven't considered other impacting factors. So maybe you haven't considered kids. Maybe you have little kids that wake you up at night, and that has an impacting factor. Can you overcome that? I don't know. But that is a factor that oftentimes gets overlooked. Sleep. If you are not sleeping, it makes things so much more difficult. It's hard to get up in the morning. It's hard to stay motivated during the day. You are more short-tempered. You are less likely to adhere to any sort of eating protocol that you want to, start doing, because when you're sleeping, you make certain hormones that like say, hey, you're not hungry. So if you're not getting those, it's like, hey, how about a donut? Or how about this high-fat, high-carb food? Because you're literally not making the things you need to make when you're sleeping, and you're just more irritable. So it's hard to stick to things. It's sort of like, well, I'll try again tomorrow. I don't like to use the word willpower because I don't think that's actually a thing. But if you think of like your life as like a cup and things get sucked out of it, and if you don't have a full cup to wake up to, there's not a whole lot of room in there. Alcohol. This is a big one. This is a hard one because just where we live in general, that if you have alcohol before you go to bed, it will impact your sleep. It will take all of your inhibitions and kind of take them down if food is one of the things that you want to work on. But if you're working on any sort of a morning routine and you consume alcohol in the evenings, the likelihood that you're going to be able to get up and do the things is very slim. So that is one where we have to really look at what's happening before you go to bed if it's a morning routine. And if alcohol's involved, likely you're waking up between 2 and 4 o'clock in the morning, your heart racing, sweaty, things like that. Now, this could also happen if you are in perimenopause, that sort of night sweats, waking up in the middle of the night. Maybe you have high cortisol, things like that. So kind of looking at your overall life situation. What can you control? What can't you control? Accountability. Do you have accountability when it comes to these routines? When I'm painting, again, this isn't a routine, but it's something that I know that I struggle with. I already have my daughter's buy-in with me. And the worst case scenario is that I would have to then hire somebody to finish the job. Like I've already thought that out. But do you have accountability when it comes to the routines that you want to have? Do you have either a coach? Do you have a friend? Do you have a coworker? One of the people that I'm working with, she wants to start a morning routine, and she's going to talk to her coworkers about starting to get up in the morning and work out with her. It could be a family member, but just having somebody else that knows what you're doing and that you can share that with is a huge thing. Others' opinions. Have you considered others' opinions in how it relates to what it is that you're wanting to do? This could be positive or negative. If the opinion and you're getting a real negative, sort of shameful push to incorporate whatever it is, routine in, you're going to have some resistance there. because it's not coming from you. So if it's coming from outside of you and not from you, or maybe others' opinions isn't somebody in your house, maybe it's from social media. You might be thinking that, oh, all of these healthy people, they all get up early in the morning because that's what you see on your Instagram feed. Well, that's just not true. You maybe are not a morning person and you can still develop a healthy lifestyle. You don't have to get up early in the morning, but maybe that's what you see. I have had somebody say that, like, my idea in my head is that to be somebody who exercises, to be fit, to be healthy, I have to get up and I have to do it early in the morning. That's just not true. So that goes back to, who are you at the core and how can you work with who you are at the core? So really thinking, are there any outside opinions coming in to you in your routines? So some helpful questions. Here is where the notebook will come in. These are some, they can get a little deep and meaty on you here. So what kind of a routine are you looking for? I've touched on, there's a morning routine, an evening routine. Those are the ones I see the most that people need. And generally how it starts is people say, I want a morning routine. And then once we start looking at, okay, what are the things you want to incorporate into your morning? What that does is it backs up to, oh, I actually need a really good evening routine because, like I said, sleep. So when you're looking at your routine, what are the things that you want to have in them? What is the purpose in this routine? So get really clear on what the routine is. And it could be, like I said, I need to come up with a routine for traveling on the weekends. So it could be something where it only happens once a month. It could be a routine for travel, for when you have family come and stay with you, of how do you interact in this time if it's something that kind of happens all the time. And then what's the goal behind your routine? This comes into what I said, are any other people's opinions influencing your why? So get really clear on, if you're wanting to do this routine, what is the end goal of the routine? And get really clear on that question. And then what will be different? So when you commit to this goal, let's say in 2 months, what will be different about you? How would somebody know? How would a person in your house know that this is something that you have done? For the people who want to get up early, it would look like, I'm less stressed. The mornings are not chaotic. That's a big one I hear, is there's not that sort of panic rushing, not knowing where things are, things like that. If it's more of an evening routine, maybe it's that you are more well rested because you have kind of a 30-minute wind down. You're not doing work right before bed. You're not reading emails, getting yourself stimulated before you're trying to then go to sleep. Or maybe it's that you have cut food and alcohol out before you go to bed so that you're sleeping better, creating a good sleep routine. What needs to happen in order for me to commit? So this goes to, are there things right now that are going on? Are there people that impact this? What are all the things that need to happen in order for you to commit to a new routine? Who or what can support me? And this goes to that accountability, because doing it alone and it just sort of is a bummer doing things by yourself. So letting people know that this is your plan, that this is what you're doing. Maybe they want to do it with you. Maybe you have somebody else who's kind of in a similar situation and you can do it with them. Just be careful, because what I also run into is, it's a good friend of yours and they sort of like, oh, it's okay, no big deal. So make sure when you're choosing that support that it's somebody who is actually going to be a support person. And maybe you design some sort of supports, like rules for yourself, that you're not going to be like, oh, it's okay, no big deal. Sometimes things come up, but you want to make sure that when you are designing support and accountability, that you're actually getting support and accountability and not just somebody helping you kind of make excuses. Which comes into the next one. What do I need to accept responsibility for in order to make it happen? So this sort of takes a look back in the mirror and at yourself. Like, are there things that maybe you're not taking responsibility for right now? And what excuses do I need to let go of? I will tell you myself, I don't make excuses often, but if I do make excuses, I probably am going to hang on really tight to them, because what they have done is they've become part of me. And it sort of has helped me make this kind of, I'm going to call it kind of even like a facade of why I couldn't do whatever the thing is. So looking at your excuses that maybe you're making for yourself, and what are they, and can you let go of them and take a really long look at yourself. And if this is something related to your health, or if it is something in a way where it's like, it's really going to make a big impact if you put these in place, these routines in place, then this last question here of what responsibility do I need to accept in order to make it happen? And what excuses do I need to let go of? That's one that you can do some sitting with, maybe take a walk and just really take a good look at those. Because if you can take full ownership of the things that maybe you haven't in the past, you'll have a good outcome maybe that you haven't had thus far. All right, so what is next? What is next is crafting your ideal routine using the morning and evening routine workbook. So some of you may have this already. I have some worksheets that I offer you that get you kind of thinking about what are the things that you would want in your morning routine, how to make an evening routine. And then I have a planner worksheet that you can use in there. And then going back when we talked about the staircase, and oftentimes they don't work because you've added too many things in. When you look at your ideal routine, you want to start with step 1, and you want to just repeat. Right. My dog is itching himself. And you do this until you have mastered it. So releasing the idea, and this could be one of the excuses, is if you can't do it perfectly, you can't do it at all. That sort of all or nothing thinking that many women struggle with, that this doesn't have to be perfect. You can do it imperfectly, and you don't have to do it all. You can start with one very small step, repeat. So this could look like, let's say you want to get up at 6 a.m. This could look like, if you're currently now hitting snooze 7 times in the morning, maybe you give yourself 3 snoozes, and then you do that for 2 weeks. If this looks like you want to get a good night's sleep, that you need a really good evening routine because you know that that's going to impact the rest of your day and week, that you take your phone and you no longer have it next to your bed. I know that's one that a lot of people, they scroll social media at the end of the day, and that can take up to an hour. Or maybe you're working and you decide that, okay, I'm going to stop working by 8 p.m. And that way I am going to have a nice wind down. I'm going to have some tea, whatever it is in your evening routine, because then your brain's going to be ready to shut off and get you a good night's sleep. But you're only going to pick one thing. And usually what I tell people is, when you get that pull and that itch, like I have to do more, give yourself another week. Like actually make this one thing a habit before you start stacking another habit on top of it. Because that idea of I have to do more, I'm not doing enough, that is one of those outside influence things that isn't actually real. You are doing enough and you don't have to do more. Because if you think about it, you weren't doing anything. So if you're doing one thing, that's going to make a big difference when you repeat, and then get really good at it. Then you can add something in. So put the brakes on when you're feeling like you have to do it all or you're not doing enough. Those are 2 things that I hear all the time. And then repeat. Then you could add something. But take your big goal and break it down to the first step before you think of, I have to do it all. I so much appreciate every review that I get, and to encourage you to give them, because they are so important to the growth of this podcast and allowing me to serve more women and reach more people. I have an offer for you. So each month, I'm going to be drawing a name of someone who leaves a written review on the podcast. And you will be entered to win one of my online programs, the Fitness Accelerator, the Nutrition Starter Kit, and the Empowered Transformation Level 1. So anyone who leaves a written review each month, at the end of the month, I'll be drawing a name, and you will get access to that program. Thank you so much to everyone who takes the time to leave a review. It does help grow this podcast, and I appreciate it so much. Spirit of a Badass is a Lit Path Studios podcast and is produced by Jamie Gale and Alecia Jacobson. Music by Shane Ivers. We'll be back with another inspiring interview. Until then, keep your spirits high and your energy badass.